Really excited today to be joined by Tyann from Branson Family Retreats. And we're going to go and deep dive her whole direct booking journey. And she'll talk a whole bunch about the different strategies and tactics she's used to build her business. So, really excited to share that with everyone today. And then, of course, how StayFi plays a role into that, a role in that. For the agenda, we're first going to learn a little bit more about her background, story of her brand, how she started her business, and then we're going to go through a bunch of different very tangible uh, tactics and strategies she's taken on to build her direct booking to, I think, over 60% of all your bookings now, right, Tyann?
Yep.
Yeah, so a ton of success. So book website, PMS, pricing, how StayFi plays in terms of direct booking tools, guest marketing, and then kind of new and exciting things she's planned for the future. And then, of course, we'll have a Q&A. Before I jump into here, just a little background on the Mastery series. All of these are recorded and are published on our YouTube page. So if you guys want to watch this again or you have to leave early, don't worry, it will all be there. During the course of the presentation, please use the Q&A section of Zoom. If you have questions, just add them there, and then we should have plenty of time at the end to go through them. And everyone here will get an email to the recording once it's pushed live, which should be tomorrow. Yeah, so now I'll just hand it over to Tyann. Why don't you just go ahead and kind of introduce yourself and what you've been up to?
All right. Thanks so much, Arthur. And really appreciate you asking me to come on. One of the things I love to do is to share knowledge. I've been around for a little while. Back in 2007 is when I started. That's when I was, let's see, I was 7 months pregnant, and we were sitting at the water park when we signed the contract to build our first vacation rental. We dove right in with one of the larger ones at the time at 4 bedrooms. And then my youngest was 2 months old when we set the house up in 5 days completely, start to finish. And the first guest arrived an hour later. So that was, I look back, I'm like, wow, we got really lucky that one, we listed dirt basically because it was July. And our first guest was the middle of November. So construction actually stayed on time, which is a huge shocker now that I've built several houses. And I don't think I know I would never run it that close ever again. But we got lucky on that one. And that guest has stayed with us many times over the last 17 years. It's pretty incredible. So yeah, started in 2007, 17 years ago. My kids have literally grown up in this. I've become addicted. I had two houses for a long time because we built the one in 2007, built another one in 2009. And then fast forward to 2017 when well, I didn't buy it. I was awarded in the divorce, 2 long-term properties. One of them was a drug house. I found out soon after. And I am not a drug house landlord, nor am I a landlord either. Those are things I very quickly learned about myself. So, as a service to my community in the neighborhood, we moved those folks along, and the drug house was no more. But it also meant that I had to completely rehab the property because it was in shambles. Did that, created the very first vacation rental in that town. The city was quite happy, actually. They came out and did a whole tour and everything. It was awesome. And then I had money burning a hole in my pocket from equity. So I was like, hey, let's buy a bank. So that's when I bought a bank and turned that into a place you can legally launder at in the Ozarks. So my bank house and a little Katie house next door. And actually today we're wrapping up turning the Katie house into the Christmas cottage. So that's super exciting. You guys will have to follow along how we're doing with that. But this seminar, session, webinar, whatever you want to call it, Arthur, is focused on our Branson Family Retreats brand. So, and I forgot to tell you, I got 2 brands in Missouri. We got the Branson one over at Table Rock Lake, and then Missouri Wine Country is my other. So total, we've got 23 properties that we own or manage. In Branson, we own 4 and then manage another 10. And then in Missouri Wine Country, I own the 2 and manage another 7. So, all of my tech stack that I that I have and the way we've grown has been very much in the mind of we don't just have one set of guests to serve, but two totally different brands, totally two different target guests. So everything we do, I have to keep that in mind, and things are tailored to those specific target guests. So one thing that to really keep in mind when you are looking at, especially a direct booking strategy, is you really, really have to know your guest, who your guest is, and create an avatar completely to know them as far as what's their name, where do they work, what kind of salary do they have, what's their family look like, why do they travel, where do they live. All those things play into the decisions that you make for your marketing and for your direct booking strategy.
I'm just
Right.
curious
Yeah.
before we go to the next slide, before for the two brands, kind of at the highest level, what is like the main difference between the avatar for Missouri Wine Country and Branson Family Retreats?
So Branson Family Retreats is mainly larger groups. Our largest house is 4 bedrooms. Our largest is 10, but we have many houses in the same neighborhoods. So for instance, we'll have family reunions of 100, 150 people contact us, and then they'll book several houses together as a large group. So we're mainly focused on groups, family reunions, for groups of friends or groups of couples, college groups, or maybe two families that want to travel together and stay together. And then for the Missouri House brand, it's a lot of dog shows, people coming out to Purina events with their dogs, and then people just visiting wine country. So couples, solos, special occasion type things, and then weddings and family reunions as far as it's a family coming to visit their family that already lives here. So for instance, like holidays in Branson, that's almost the same rate as summer, the high season. But in Missouri wine country, it's more families visiting their families that live locally. There isn't a holiday high season per se. So the rates are not, dramatically up like the high season, because in addition, high season is different between the two areas because it is the different types of travelers.
Awesome. I know we covered some of this, but just kind of curious, when it came to kind of like your own journey from going from one listing to then starting to manage others, when did you really make that leap from being kind of, I know you put hobby host here, to being more of like a professional? When do you consider that you actually switched from being a hobbyist to being a professional short-term rental operator?
So the point in my brain that it switched was when this became my family's income. So before I call myself a hobby host because my husband at that time he got the main income for the family. I raised our kids. I got 3 sons, and I was the mom who created created businesses because I had a whole line of children's room decor that was a complete business on its own. But I shaped my time in my life to where I could be there for my kids. So taking them to school in the morning, picking them up in the afternoons, those were my sacred times. And anything that would fit around that is what I would do. If it didn't, I didn't do it. Volunteering at their school, making sure I'm at the school field trips, that I could actually have time to volunteer and help out in the classroom as well was super important to me. Fast forward a little bit when divorce happened, and then I had to be completely on my own. And that's when I realized my vacation rentals could be something that would be my main source of income. And so that's when I leaned into that, started the second brand of properties. And then my management actually started with that second brand in wine country because there was no one else around, and people were like, oh, what is this thing, this is cool, well, can you do that for me? And so that started to grow. And then with Branson, I was ready to what we call trade new. So my first 2 properties, I was ready to, hey, let's build some bigger ones, some better ones that lean more into my target guests and create those floor plans and those designs for those folks. And then I thought, okay, we're going to trade new. We're going to sell that and put that money towards the newer one, the bigger one. And when I started to do that, the homeowners who bought the property, they're like, "Yeah, just go ahead and keep managing it. It's all cool." So then that started to grow that side of the business.
And then what were some of the like initial learnings or challenges you faced that you know, as you started the management business especially?
Yeah, so I used the wrong color linens and towels at first. I thought it would be brilliant idea to do every size, king versus queen in different colors. And then towels, I thought, oh, brown will go really great with the color scheme. I was not a designer. It was bad. And the pictures you guys see right here is fast forward 10 years. Okay. So this is 10 years later. So 10 years before that's my very first house, the second one on the bottom. It was reds and golds and browns, and it was, oh, I can't stand looking at the pictures now. It's that bad. That's when I learned that acne medication will bleach your linens and towels, create orange spots. And then but it took me almost a decade to realize white was the way to go with linens and towels. That was one big thing. If you guys ever want to see my brown towels, I actually have them here at home. That's one of the things about being a vacation rental manager that has your own properties is you come to my house. Literally, my living room furniture is hand-me-downs from my vacation rentals, and my towels are the same way. They're hand-me-downs. One day I'll buy some new stuff for myself, but we're not there yet. So that was one of the biggest things. And then also operating without a lot of tech help. I was so minimal. I started out, of course, with a paper calendar as well. And just finally realizing once the tech got to a point where it wasn't cumbersome, it was extremely helpful. Then things really started to turn around and I could add more properties. I could do more with less time. And for me, I have to be very careful because if I have time, I end up starting another business because I hate cleaning my own house. So that happens.
Yeah. So next up, I mean, obviously the first thing or one of the first things host or property manager is going to do when starting in direct bookings is to build a website or to launch a website through their PMS. I'd love to hear kind of like how you approach the first website and then what upgrades you've taken on over the years to where you are today.
So my very first website was when I started. I realized immediately I knew I needed to have a page where I could direct guests that was not Verbo, because Airbnb wasn't even around yet. But I started on Verbo and I created a website that I could send folks to. And as you can see, if you zoom in, I actually do have a MailChimp list. I started out collecting emails for folks that would visit my website. Now, I also chose a brand name that is very general. Back then, it was more of, hey, keywords, SEO, what are they going to search for? Let's make that the brand name. But 10 years later, that's when I rebranded and also built on WordPress. So my very first website, I built it. It's built total HTML, CSS. I learned how to do that coding in college and took those skills to WordPress as well. It's much, much easier now than it was back then. But it was one of those things of you definitely want to start immediately, even if it's not 100%, if it's not perfect, you just got to start. And collecting those email addresses especially has played a huge role. Yes, I'm in 17 years in, but it's one of those things where when you are consistent in communication and consistent in who you are, I have guests come back after a decade and they say, hey, we've been getting your emails, but we haven't left the list because we knew when we come back one day that we do want to stay with you. So you don't want to be discouraged when you're like, oh, I'm collecting emails, but I'm not even sending emails yet. Maybe I'll get to it. Still do it. And then eventually, step by step, you start doing things. But remember, it doesn't have to be perfect to start.
Your current website approach, if I'm not mistaken, is you built the website through WordPress and then you are using the owner as widget that you can like place in a WordPress website, right?
Correct. Yeah. And that was one of my requirements when I was choosing a PMS at the time, back in 2017 or so, is, it had to fit with two brands. I had to operate two brands within one account, and the PMS had to understand what properties belonged where. So they got the right branding and communications and emails and things like that. And then also I like control, if you didn't know that about me. And so I wanted my WordPress website so I could control what it looked like, what it did, what the SEO was. So I wanted a PMS that had widgets or a landing page that I could direct people to. So at first I was directing them from a link to the landing page, and now it's the embedded widgets within WordPress, so that I have full control over what I want it to do.
Yeah, I'd say I see a lot of people take this approach, whether the PMS offers an embeddable widget or just a white labeled booking engine. Most of the PMS websites are not going to offer the rest of the type of pages you'd want, whether it's guesty or host away, streamline, etc. The basic hospitable, the basic widget is typically just the booking engine. And then for people that really want to do it themselves, they use WordPress or Squarespace or some other place to build your own website. Now, obviously, if you're less tech savvy, there's a host of both design agencies and software that can also build a website for you. So, within the Stayfi partner promotions portal, we kind of cover the gamut all the way from a web ready, which is going to be a drag or a crafted stage, which is like a drag and drop template, all the way to working with like an IC&D or Realtek or Boostly, which are going to be a custom website or a website built by an agency. So one great thing now is, of course, reach out to Stayfi if you need any help. There's kind of a website option that's right for everybody, depending on your budget and tech skills that's out there.
And the thing with the website too is, just start, even if it's with your PMS's website template that at least gets you going. So you can collect the email addresses, have that landing page, the direct booking, and then you have your custom website eventually being done if you ever decide to go that way. But the main thing is baby steps, just start and do it. Remember, even if it's not perfect, and this is coming from a recovering perfectionist.
And I see this also in email marketing, which I know we'll talk to, is a lot of people are always waiting for, we need the perfect template, we need the perfect this. The longer those emails sit and aren't getting marketed to, the more likely they become stale. So always better to start with something than nothing. So
Yep.
yeah, then moving about your whole tech stack, which I love here, laying out, kind of walk me through, I know there's probably a lot behind all of these, but kind of generally how do you look at all of these and where they fit in?
Yeah, so PMS owner res, that's the core. And then I guess I look at it as a core hub, and then I plug in all the ancillary type of features that we operate with. And the ones that I choose are very much according to what we value, what's important to me, because there's a bit, not a bazillion, I'm exaggerating, but there's so many choices that are very good choices with tech, and they all do very, very similar things, but there's some that have better strengths than others. So when I chose my tech stack, I looked at what my values were, what was most important to me, and that then I looked into, okay, what is that piece of tech's strength? And if that fit, then that was towards the top of my choices. So I use OwnerRes, but for instance, I also had tested Logify. I almost went with Logify instead of OwnerRes, because it did almost everything that I needed to, but OwnerRes hit more of the values of what I needed. And a lot of that is my communication. A lot of folks know me, of course, in the industry with about my communication, how much I communicate with my guest, and how that affects my direct booking. It affects my reviews. It affects our revenue as well. So that's where the digital guidebook comes into play, and Touch Day is a huge part of that. So with direct book, it doesn't matter how my guests book, where they come from, whether it's an OTA or direct, they all get the exact same communication flow. And OwnerRes and Touch Days are able to take where they came from and tailor those messages that I've set out directly to them and make them personalized. And then when my guests come and they get onto the Wi-Fi through StayFi, then I'm able to incorporate more of Touch Day, my digital guidebook, and then also StayFi connecting to Kit, used to be ConvertKit, and tagging my guest, how they got to my email list, what house they're on, when they stayed, and then I can email market the different ways, the different messages to them according to the segments as well. And then of course I do SMS marketing, which Arthur, I was shocked when I turned on the ability to collect phone numbers. I thought, this, I'll just try it, see what happens, because I'm a huge proponent of testing ideas. And I did it. And then when I started looking at the data of how many people were actually giving me their text, their phone number and saying, yes, you can market to me, I was shocked. I want to say, I haven't run the numbers specifically, but I want to say it's like 90% of people are, yeah, here's my phone number. Yeah, you can send me marketing messages. So I'm like, sweet. So, at least once a month, I try to send some type of text marketing out to everybody. And it doesn't cost a lot at all. And it's keeping us, our brand and who we are top of mind with our guests, even though my guests aren't the type of guest who book every year or once a month or whatever, it could be every 5 years, but I still want to keep top of mind with them so that when they do decide, hey, we want to take a big family reunion, or maybe they want to take a quick Christmas trip to Branson and Silver Dollar City, I am at the top of mind. I'm in their inbox, in their text messaging. They're like, oh yeah, yeah, let's go stay with Nat and Tyann again. And then Price Labs. Do you want me to talk about my strategy with Price Labs now?
We're gonna go through the get to the price lab slides. I think we can jump into that
Okay.
there. One thing
Okay.
I actually saw a question about this.
Yeah.
Someone's hey, StayFi has email marketing, but you guys use ConvertKit. My whole perspective of that and like kind of our approach to StayFi is each kind of module within StayFi is meant to be, it's like a buffet. You can pick the things that are right for you. And we have a lot of customers that love ConvertKit or MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, or they use HubSpot and they're a lot more sophisticated. So our approach has always been, we are a data collection point, and if you want to do marketing somewhere else, that's amazing. And then on the flip side, we have customers that use our email marketing, but actually don't use the Wi-Fi, right? So for our standpoint, because we know so many people have different tech stacks and different needs, we try to make our platform as flexible as possible so that we can fit in and not say like, hey, Tyann, in order to use Wi-Fi, you must use our email tool, right? So we like to make sure we're fitting in wherever folks want to use us.
And I think that's so wise of you guys doing that too, because it's like, well, when I started, you guys didn't have the email marketing available. And so that's why, I immediately went to something else because it wasn't available. But now that you have that, when I have time, I'll look into it, see if it's something that better fits my needs. And I like watching and seeing what tech is available, what can be done. And as we go on with time, as we all know, tech just gets better and better and solving different pain points and being creative on those types of things too. And I love the fact that you guys do separate that out so that folks can pick and choose whatever's best for their tech stack and the way they run their company.
Yeah, I know you chose OwnerRes, but I actually talked to, I'd say the number one question we get is, I'm not happy with my PMS. What do you guys recommend? Or I don't have a PMS. What should I pick? And I feel like you ran a really good process to kind of like finally test and select yours. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I first wrote down a list of what is most important to me. As far as how the calendars go, what kind of communications are available, what kind of features there are that the PMS provides, what were my absolute must-haves, what were some nice to haves, and what are some things that I didn't care about. And then it basically made a spreadsheet of that, of all my different options, and then did the little check marks. And then once I did that and narrowed it down, I had narrowed it down to OwnerRes and Logify. Then I did test trials. So I got into the platform, I got into the background, connected my properties in a way that I could see what would happen and get the feel of it. Because the thing is all these different pieces of tech, they all got different dashboards and user interfaces. And each one of us has a different type of brain, and our brain comprehends, understands things differently. And what I found is my brain comprehended the complexity of OwnerRes a lot better. And I was able to follow how things were done. And I could immediately see how I could apply my creativeness to it as well, because it was so comprehensive. It was just incredible. Now, is it perfect? No, there's some things that they really need to improve on, but they don't fall into my column of absolutely must haves. And that was one of the reasons I was just like, okay, they took every single thing I need for the must-haves. They got some great nice-to-haves, and the other things that aren't as important, and they are pain points that I could live with because they're not huge painful points. I was okay with that too. So it's that's how I went about choosing what the PMS was. Now, Arthur, the other thing is I didn't have as many choices as people have nowadays either. So it's even more overwhelming in deciding what PMS you want to do. But one thing that you should absolutely consider is, where do you want to be in 2 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? What is your goal with your properties? Because the different PMSs do cater to different size companies, whether it's one or two or 15 to 50 or even 100 or more. So keep that in mind, because changing a PMS is extremely, extremely painful process, because you are learning a new system as well. So you got to be pretty much in pain to change. So that way you want to keep in mind, okay, what do I need right now, but what am I going to need later in case I don't want to have to change?
And one thing I love that you did is you actually went ahead and used both. I feel like I talked to a lot of people that sign up for a PMS, even sign like a contract for a year before ever actually using it with a property. So if possible, I feel like that is definitely the best way to do it, is to actually get your hands dirty and actually test it out with one of the listings if
Yeah.
possible.
And if you've got team members and it's your team members who's going to be in the dashboard as well in the back end, make sure that they get in there and test it also, because you want to make sure that they can understand it, they know what's going on. And yes, majority of these are complex and you do need some hand holding a lot of times. But that's what support's there for. You can reach out to the PMS support and say, hey, my team wants to do this. We have questions. Can you show it to us? And then can you let us play around for a little bit? And that way everybody gets their hands on it to see what it is, and they give you their feedback. Because if you're not the main one in it, you don't want to be the making that final decision and cause more pain for your team.
And just curious, how many members do you have on the team today, and kind of where are they located?
Yeah, so now I have four or three, I guess, three plus myself. So one, my husband Nat, and then we hired his daughter Adrienne, and then her husband Nick. So we're the main people on the payroll, and then we've got contractors for cleaning and maintenance and stuff like that. But if anybody's going to call one of our brands, you're going to get one of us four.
That's amazing. Um, yeah, now I know your pricing strategy, I think is pretty unique based on talking to a lot of operators and how they differentiate between channel and website. So I'd love just for you to kind of dive into your approach there in Price Labs, because I think people could learn a lot from it.
Yeah. So I when I was choosing Price Labs, I did the exact same thing I talked about with my PMS. I looked at all the different revenue management pieces, but I didn't go in it looking for revenue management. Owner Res, one of their failures is being able to price things very well, as far as seeing what you're pricing each property at on the different days. And I needed something visually as a better dashboard. So what I went in looking for was a software, a piece of tech that could give me a dashboard to see what's really going on with my properties, and then being able to apply various rules that would fit with my target guest, my booking window, my season, and all of that. So in the end, after testing the different ones and doing my little process, I chose Price Labs. And what I do, because I'm into areas with not a lot of data. So with Missouri House brand, I am like one of a handful of property managers. It's mainly folks who just do their own properties in this area, and you have to really make the area big as well. Because if you hone in on just our tiny county, I've got like over half the properties. So I don't want a revenue management to be like, oh yeah, well look at this property. Let's compare it to this one. It's like, well, that's mine too. That doesn't work. So, and there's just not a lot of data available. And the thing is I know the area. I mean, I grew up in the area. I'm sixth generation. I understand the travel patterns. We have the relationships with the Chamber of Commerce's. We know what's going on. And I also really push the market on how much of a rate the market will bear. So with Missouri House, I put in, okay, this is about where we want. Here's a floor, here's a ceiling, here's the rules I want to do. And then I let the price labs go within that window. And then it's the same thing with Branson. When all the revenue management stuff started coming out, again, it was, yes, there's more property managers, but there's one specific property manager who's large, and it was mainly their data coming into the algorithms. And I'm like, well, I don't want my pricing to be based on the only data that's coming in at this time. So I was like, no, we're not doing that. There's more data coming into the Branson area because it's grown tremendously in the past couple of years, like mind blowing tremendously. But I do apply similar things. I give a floor and I give a ceiling because I'm watching what the market will bear. Then I let Price Labs apply the rules that I put in and just let it kind of bounce in between. Because sometimes Price Labs will say, oh, wait, this is really, really high demand. These should go super high. I'm like, oh, no, it ain't. That's not happening. It's like, yes, there's a high demand maybe for 1 or 2 bedrooms because a concert's in town. But we've already found is that the big houses don't have a high demand on Thursday in the off season for a concert because people are only coming in for the one night. And we don't do one nights, but if we did do one nights, then they don't want to pay the cleaning fee because it's so big. So all those little pieces that come in. So applying the knowledge that I have of the area and the travel patterns, and again, data from the Chamber of Commerce's as well, and then apply that to the piece of tech so that the tech is literally a tool that I'm wielding in the way that best works for me.
And then for the channel pricing, I think that's also a
Mm.
pretty interesting strategy here too.
Yeah. So channel pricing, our base is our direct site. And then I upcharge for every channel that we're on. So for instance, right now, Verbo, we're at 10%. So OwnerRez, so Price Labs sends the price over to OwnerRez. OwnerRez then sends the price over to the different channels, and then we'll upcharge it according to what I say. So Verbo is at 10% right now. And Airbnb, I think I've currently got it at 45%. But generally, I'll move that depending upon season to be 30% higher to up to we've gone up to 60% higher when I got really mad at them. Uh, but but part of that is the fact we do take on the entire service fee. So the guests don't pay a service fee. We pay 15% as a host service fee. So I have to upcharge it to just cover that, you know.
Mhm.
But then I also add what I call the PITA fee. And you guys know what PITA means, right? The pain in the ass fee. And so if you're going to book me through Airbnb, you're going to pay a little bit more because we have to deal with that platform. But what it also does is because we have properties that all have a personality and a uniqueness, what we've realized is the guests that are savvy, the guests that are great guests, they'll go find us direct because they'll put into when they're booking the booking form. When I say, well, how did you find us? They'll say, we found you on Airbnb. We found you on Verbo. And then that drives that traffic to direct bookings. Now we do get Airbnb bookings. In Branson, we try to keep it under 10%. We do that pretty well. Missouri House brand, like I said, different guests, different travel patterns. We're much higher. We're almost 30% from Airbnb because that's just the type of traveler that is drawn to that area. And they pay that extra fee, you know, but it's there. And I'm okay with that as well because we're one of the few properties. It's not like there's a ton of properties in that area either. The other part is Missouri House brand. Guests can book up to a year and a half in advance on Airbnb, on Verbo and Direct. On Branson, we limit those calendars. So Direct, you can book up to 2 years in advance. Verbo up to 2 years in advance. Airbnb, it's generally maybe a month or two at a time, unless we're going into the off season, like right now, and then I'll open up that calendar a little bit more because it's such low travel period, and I'll allow that. So putting different parts into that strategy.
Yeah, what I love to hear is almost like visually like a funnel. It's, we're going to try to get as much direct as possible as far in advance. Then kind of the next way to fail is through Verbo, and then the last, ditch attempt to get those last dates occupied is through Airbnb. And the way you kind of roll those out sequentially, I just think that's such a fantastic strategy. Also, I think it's good to point out, like, I feel like not OwnerRes and Price Labs to me are some of the most like robust in terms of customization. So to me, it makes a lot of sense that you were drawn to both of those tools, just because when I look at OwnerRes, I can find it overwhelming personally because it's like you have the most options, right? So it's not just like you said, it's kind of what resonates with you and how you want to run your business. There's not one right option for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah, now let's talk about email. And I'd be curious to kind of like know your journey with email. When did you start? And then obviously, when you learned about StayFi, I think we met at a conference, kind of went through your mind in terms of like, hey, this will be a great way to grow our list and and why you went down that route with the Wi-Fi marketing piece.
So email has always been very, very, I don't, yeah, key, but yeah, definitely key because I would get all of their information as soon as they book. And so and then I started growing my email list. And we started out with MailChimp. I think most people may start with MailChimp because it's been around a long time. It's free in the beginning as well. And I was on the free plan for, gosh, most of the time because all I did, I sent out occasional emails and I didn't put drip emails into place or anything like that. I just didn't take the time because I had other priorities like raising 3 kids, you know? And then when I met Arthur and saw StayFi, I was like, okay, I immediately my brain connected. I'm hosting groups of an average of 10 to 14 people. My largest house now sleeps 32 people and I'm only getting one email address, we can definitely get more email addresses. And even if it's just one more email address, I mean, that you've just doubled your list right there. So we got the devices in there back when we only had a couple properties, and it's been really, really great. I think we're well over 4,000 emails now. And one of the things I do like is if a guest does not want to give their email address, that's fine. They can still click on to not give it. They can put a fake email address in there too. And the StayFi program understands, they look at it. Is this a valid email? Yes. Pass it on to what I use now, Kit or ConvertKit, previously MailChimp. And if it wasn't a valid email address, it didn't even go over there. Didn't have to worry about it. It was great that the tech took care of that part. I didn't have to go through and get a bunch of invalid emails and then end up in spam and things like that because I'm sending two invalid email addresses. So that was tremendous. Uh, what was your other question?
Oh, I just love, I mean, I'd love for you to talk more about your strategy in terms of like what content you put in. I feel like on the right here, we have a great example of how you really lead with your story, which I feel like is, unless if you're like a very corporate operator with like 100+ properties, I feel like your personal story is the go-to best way to kind of build your brand.
Yeah. So when a guest comes on to Stay By, they then are moved over to Kit and they go into our drip email. And the very first email that they get within an hour of getting onto our Wi-Fi at the houses is an email with our story. Because I want to introduce again us to the other folks in the group. Now, we've been talking to the booker, the person who booked, so they've gotten to know us by name. We've talked to them by, text message, by phone call. They've gotten emails from us, but I want to make sure that the rest of the group knows too that this is us. This is a small family business. This is our income. We're not a big corporate type of thing. We've got our personal names in communications. It's on the fridge to let them know who we are as well. And then a sign right out front with our contact information too. So we're very much, really push this is who we are. This is how we're going to take care of you. We want you to know us. And then we also, in our story, connect with them. As so the different touch points, because we're hosting large families in Branson, we let them know we're a large family also. I mean, Nat comes from a family that he's the youngest of 6 kids. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. We have 6 kids between us. We're used to large families. We're used to 25, 30 people easily getting together for a holiday dinner. It's nothing to us. And I think, letting our guests know that it's not unusual for them to want to get together as a large group, because we'll have people say, are you guys okay with the large groups with the families? It's like, yeah, totally. We're used to it. We're one of them, just like you. And by the way, here's some great tips on what to do, how to travel as a large family group without getting on each other's nerves, especially if you're going to be with each other more than 3 days. And this is why we built our houses in the way they are, so that you have that space, that personal space, but that together space, and how important that is to have that for everyone's sanity as well. And then also the way the kitchens are, and giving them tips on how to make sure mealtime goes smoothly, how to divvy up responsibilities, things like that. And then they get into our drip email, and then we talk about the local recommendations, things to do. And then when they get on, so then they're on our email newsletter. And our email newsletter, I try to start with something that is, I don't know, exciting, maybe something that's kind of clickbait-y almost, but just in a very friendly, personal tone. So like the email that went out yesterday, and then I'll resend this afternoon to those who didn't open it, was about our Christmas cottage. And Christmas is huge in Branson because it's Christmas tree town is what it's known for. And a lot of people they just want that Hallmark Christmas feeling. Well, I'm not doing that at our Branson houses, but we're doing it at one of our Missouri houses. And the way we're trying to describe it is like as if Hallmark movies just kind of threw up in the house. And that's what we're going for. And so I am advertising the Christmas cottage in my Branson email. And so it starts out with, Christmas cottage, is this clickbait? It's like, you tell me, yes, it's all Christmassy. Yes, it's got a private hot tub. Yes, it's wheelchair accessible, which is all points of our Branson target guest. But then the last point is, but I'm sorry, it's not at the in Branson, it's not at the lake, it's over in Missouri wine country. Let me know if you want to be on the wait list for this. And we immediately got a reply saying, I didn't know there was a wine country in Missouri. So, just cross promoting that and just talking about what we're doing personally in our lives is important. So, yeah, email newsletters, we try to talk about something going on. We try to highlight another business. We try to highlight a guest photo if we've gotten guest photos lately. And then we also always highlight a guest review with a picture of the house. And then at the very end, just reiterating again, you can book up to 2 years in advance. You can ask us any questions. Here's our rewards program. Here's our ticket program. Because the thing with communication is you're going to tell them, you're going to tell them again, and then you're going to tell them again, and then you're going to tell them again. It's just you have to keep telling them over and over and in different ways. So, videos, I'll link a lot of times to our videos on social media, but it's generally very similar information, but said in different ways because, we don't listen to each other always the first time. If you got kids, you understand that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I speak to a lot of folks who are just worried about, oh, I already emailed about this thing. Like, can I really email it again in 2 weeks? And I'd say 100%. 60% of the people didn't even open the first email. You say rate resend to non-openers, which is always a great strategy. But I say always lean into over communication and putting your brand in front of them more, because the key thing, like you said, is you just need to make sure of when they're planning their next trip that you're top of mind and they search your website and not just go instinctually back to the OTA, which is kind of what we've all been kind of programmed to do, right?
Yep, exactly.
I know you talked about Wi-Fi, but here we can just see kind of an example of your splash page. And we talked about your automation. Anything else you wanted to add here before we kind of jump into the homepage piece, which I know we just kind of updated for you.
Yeah. So one thing we do when they give us their phone number, they get a welcome text. So when they put in their email, they get a welcome email. They put in a text or their phone number, you get a welcome text. And that text message actually asks them to rate their arrival. So, a lot of time, every stay gets rate your stay, right? At the end of the stay. Well, this is their first impression on arrival. And this is through the TouchStay digital guidebook. So it sends the direct link to that section in our guidebook. And then I get a rating of first impressions. Now, we are not perfect. So it's not all 5 stars, as much as I would love for them to all be 5 stars. But what happens is when we get that 3 or 4 star once in a blue moon, they also put the comment of why. And that gives us the opportunity to address the situation immediately, because it could be something that they would just be like, we're not even going to tell them. But it's a little small issue that just kind of festers throughout their stay. And then at the end, they're not very satisfied, and it could end up with a bad review because of something you didn't even know about, which I know a lot of us, that happens frequently too. So one of the things we do to take care of that is A, the first impressions rating, and B, we call them after arrival to open up those communication lines.
Yeah, one thing I'll just say there is I think this is like a really unique, not unique, but just very interesting. What is unique, but very interesting application of StayFi's tools because yes, StayFi does have a rate and review feature within StayFi. TouchStay also has this first uh, impressions rate and review. And Tyann decided that she's going to leverage the StayFi's welcome text. So when you log onto the Wi-Fi in our text messaging tool, you can trigger a text message. In that text message, you can put all these different merge fields or special links, and now she's linking them right into TouchStay. So it's just kind of showing you there's lots of creative ways to interweave all these tech solutions together. And I think that's a really interesting one. Just so because that way Tyann's directing everybody into that one source of reviews that she wants to push everyone into. Um, yeah, now we'll talk about homepage, which I feel like until we had a discussion about doing this webinar you weren't even that familiar with. And I feel like that's kind of something true across all software, right? Is all software that we use, whether it's software StayFi uses or software you're using as a host, whether it's Price Labs or OwnerRez, they're always updating, and it can be hard to even keep up with new things everybody's launching all the time.
Yeah, I like you said, hey, we're gonna add these links. I'm like, perfect. I'd love to see it because, like you said, there's so many features that tech pieces are working on that they want to solve the pain points. But also, as a property manager, there's not time to keep up on absolutely everything. So this is you guys are seeing this for the first time. I'm seeing this for the first time. So Arthur, tell me more about it.
Yep. So, as everyone here may know, if you're a StayFi user, is after someone logged into the Wi-Fi, we now have this feature called Homepage, where someone's taken to a unique page for each listing where you can have all of your important links listed in one place. So here on the right side, we can see guidebook, which is going to be your touch guidebook for this property. Book again, which is going to be to book this property again, website. And then you guys have two really unique programs that, of course, you can use StayFi's custom buttons to feature. One is maybe you just want to talk first what BFR rewards and free attraction tickets are, and then I'll go and show how we actually added these buttons to the page.
All right, cool. So me again, my brain, I was like, I'm always testing things. And there's a lot of different ideas out there and a lot of tech pieces to solve different things. But I couldn't find anything that quite fit exactly what I wanted for my target guest, and that worked for my business as well. So I created two things this summer. One is our BFR rewards. And this was very much inspired by Marriott. So when I talked to Bernardo, when he gave a presentation on loyalty from Marriott Homes and Villas, it just all of a sudden it clicked in my brain exactly what is a rewards program. And what Bernardo had said is, people don't join rewards programs after they've stayed. They're joining them the first time they stay with you. And so I thought, what is it that I want to give my direct booking guest in as a reward for booking with us and then to build their loyalty? So I came up with a handful of items that we felt that would bring value. We're not giving a discount per se, but it's more of a value add. There is a part of it that is a discount. So we discount our dog rate for our rewards members. And then that way too, it gives me the opportunity when someone says, hey, you got any discounts going on? We can always direct them back to what the rewards program is and have them join that. And it's free to join. And it's things that are within our power to easily do and things that we know our guests would value and just light up their eyes. So one is they can choose either 1 hour early check-in or 1 hour late checkout. if it's available. And we only let them choose one. So it's like a first come, first serve. So for some instance, someone booking for next summer, they can choose one of those. We'll put it into the calendar and that is theirs. So if they choose late checkout, that means if someone books to come in that same day, it's not available for early check-in. Another thing is, like I said, the dog rate. We do a reduced dog rate for rewards members. And then we do a special delivery of some type of food item. And what we found right now, it's donuts. We've got some really cool donut places in Branson, like super fancy giant donuts that they're jaw dropping and they taste really, really good. So we try to, and then we can DoorDash now at our houses. I'm so excited about that because we didn't have DoorDash until like a year ago. And then we will DoorDash, or if we're in town, we hand deliver the donuts. And just seeing their eyes light up on something so small like that, it has been really, really good feedback. For instance, last week we did it, but it wasn't only, we didn't have any rewards members because not everybody joins it. But what happened is the water main broke in one of our neighborhoods there at the lake. So that means, oh, hey, by the way, any guests coming in today, there's no water. Either water won't work, or if it does work, it's going to look nasty. It could smell nasty. It might have a lot of air in it. So we're like, okay, let's watch this. It should be fixed by then. Well, guests arrive, then we get a call. Hey, there's no water. The water main was not fixed. Come to find out, it wouldn't be fixed till later that evening. So we immediately told the guests, you know what? Do you guys need anything? Because we are going to deliver you guys cases of water and it'll be about an hour or so. And they said, oh, yeah, that's fine. That was great. So we delivered cases of water, bags of ice, and the donuts. And we did not have a single issue, a single complaint, nothing except thank you so much for taking care of us. Oh my gosh, these donuts are amazing. And the weekend went so smoothly, even though it started with no water anywhere and a lot of stress when that happens too. So that is our rewards program, and how we leverage that. The other thing I do is I do mention our rewards program on the OTA listing sites, but it's simply ask us about BFR rewards, and that's it. Because I can't talk about my direct site on the OTA listings, and I'm not going to tell them to go to direct listing. Obviously, we can't tell them that, but by simply saying, "Hey, ask about our BFR rewards." And if they do, that opens the conversation saying, well, it's not available on the OTAs, it's available on our site. So that's that. And then the free attractions ticket program. Branson historically is a destination that is known for packages and timeshares. Unfortunately, on the timeshares. But what that has caused is the travelers think in mind of what are the discounts I can get. And so I thought, how do I leverage that mindset, that thing of what discounts are out there? How can we get them type thing? But very much set us apart from any type of timeshares. But then again, thinking of packages. So what we came down to is we had built relationships with certain shows and attractions, and we built those relationships and partnerships and created our own little free ticket program. So for instance, Silver Dollar City, one of the top theme parks in the country, I am the only authorized ticket seller that is a vacation rental management company. I thought that was super, super cool. So there's different partnerships that we did there. And then we tell the guests, you book with us, you get a free ticket to, group A, group B, or group C, depending upon how long you stay with us. And that was also created to get guests to add that additional night, because then they get something additional free. And as humans, we all love something free. So I created those in a way that gets them to think, oh, maybe if I just add one more night, if I spend a little bit more money, I'm going to get something else free. So that was the reasoning behind that. And it's been going really, really well.
Better to have an extra night than force them to attend a 3-hour presentation.
Only three, Arthur?
Yeah, I don't know.
No, you're stuck for six.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so quickly, I'll just show everyone here. I'm in Tyann's account. Again, splash page, very simple. Go to the splash page, is unique by property. And then for each home page, like we mentioned, we got the lovely Touch Stay guidebook here for that property. book again website, and then for the rewards program, it takes you right to sign up for the rewards program, and then free attraction tickets takes you to that page on the website. So this is where every guest is taken when they log into the Wi-Fi. Also, just to remind everybody, these home pages are kind of like a link tree. They are available to be linked anywhere else, so you can show it to the guests prior to the stay as well. And you can always find the link to each specific homepage right here, so you can link to it anywhere else you want. When it comes to creating these custom buttons, the steps are very simple. You go to Edit Homepage Template over here. And this is kind of the standard set of buttons that every homepage will have available. Now, of course, if you don't end up using or linking to one of these things on that specific property's homepage, the button just does not appear. So let's say Tyann had a touch stay guidebook for every property but one. That link would just be left blank for that property, and then there just wouldn't be a guidebook button because you wouldn't want a guidebook button to lead nowhere. Then down below, to add a custom button, you just hit Add Custom Button. Then you'll be able to create, I made two here, but then of course you can add the display name, the text here, pick an icon. So that's step one, is to create the two custom buttons, which we did already. Then if you go back to Wi-Fi experience and you go to bulk edit home pages, this is where you can then insert the links that are specific for that property. In this case, luckily, the links for the rewards and the free attraction tickets are the same for every home. So they just go and copy and paste into each one. But you'll notice for the guidebook, for instance, all of these links are going to be a little different because obviously the guidebook is different for each one. So those are the general steps. First is create custom buttons, then go ahead and fill links in for each property. And then you can always preview each one on the right and make sure these buttons are leading to the right place. And you can click those here and just make sure everybody sees those. So pretty simple, hopefully, right? So that's all set up for you now. So hopefully you'll get some more reward signups from some of the non-booking guests that are coming through.
Love it. And then what I want to do now is I'll probably go in and adjust that link to where it has tracking, a UTM tracking link on it. So then I can see where they're coming from.
Some of that we did this. And then finally, I know you are one of the most consistent text marketers in our using our tool. So I love to learn more about, especially the types of group text that you've been sending, because I see a lot of unique cases where you're, sending out different offers or last minute availability. Kind of what have you found works best through text marketing?
I would say, you know what? I've put codes in there and
Hmm.
nobody's used the codes. I think that the most links we've got, or clicking through to links, is when I do talk about something else going on in the area. And then they'll click through to go check it out, or they'll click through to go check out our website. And I think a lot of that has to do, obviously, because I don't generally have guests that book super duper last minute either. And so one of the things is, okay, I got to know who my guest is and then target more of where are they, what are they planning right now? So it's been on my list actually this week to send a text message out about Christmas, because Christmas in Branson starts November 1st. And we're booked out completely for Thanksgiving, but Christmas is not booked out yet. So I need to be sending that text out saying, hey, don't forget about Christmas and book your stay for the holidays.
I think it's very interesting the point you bring about promo codes is I see people send out emails, text with promo codes. They see people respond, book those dates, and they never bring up the promo code. I'm not sure why that is sometimes. I think it's very interesting psychologically. Sometimes people just don't read things or they click through the link and forget about the promo code. Also, I think it's important to remember, right, that especially these longer stays, which are relatively more expensive, let's just say that, the planning process, there's a lot of research that goes into it, right? I'm sure it's very rare that somebody clicks and just makes a booking, right? It's going to be a process where there's probably many different visits to your website before someone makes a booking. I'm sure you might probably see that in Google Analytics, that there's many visits before someone actually makes a transaction.
Yep. Yep. And a lot of times, it's also a phone call or a text message. We try to make we do make our phone number very accessible, especially when you start talking about, it's not just a couple $100 or even a couple $1,000 stays. next summer when they're booking for a $10,000 week or something. And then they want to make sure that we're real people as well. And so again, that's why it's so important for us to have our branding across the board, and StayFi, leans into that as well. So that the logo, the colors, but also our photos, and who we are, and then connecting all the different pieces, to our blog, to our website, to our email marketing, and letting people know who we are, and then the socials as well. So I noticed, on the landing page, you've got our social links too. I think that's so important as trust touch points, so that they can research us and know that, they're sending their money to a reputable business that does have a property for them, that will take care of them for sure.
And the trust factor is so big, especially I feel like, it's relatively easy to have a guest rebook with you that stayed with you before because they had that experience. But to go that extra mile to get that first booking directly, you really need to establish that level of trust so that someone's willing to go around an OTA maybe for the first time.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, now this is just kind of like an overview, which I know we talked a lot about these things, but I think it's just important to kind of reiterate how all of this is integrated together. And I really think it all goes back to that brand story and personal narrative that you guys put together, is still like the anchor of everything. And I feel like so much of that is personalized communication with the actual people running the business. And I think it's interesting that you've chosen not to do like virtual assistants and outsourcing. And I feel like that's kind of a very intentional choice to match the brand.
It absolutely is. And the way AI is, I know it's getting better and better. And maybe one day we'll incorporate some of that, but for now, it's very much it's all of us. But we also make it very intentional with our communications to actually answer questions before guests even ask them. So in that case, we rarely get a lot of questions at all, because we're always sending the information before they've even asked it. So everything is timed to where, I know they're going to ask for directions and the door code. So I send it to them before they even ask them. So we're at 30 days that no, not 30, 14 days that we send that information. But at 30 days, they also get information saying when they will get more detailed information, because like you said, large groups, they plan and they have to have all that information together. So knowing who your target guests and when they want information and what type of information is super key for that.
And one point here I'll just emphasize, which I know you talked about earlier, was billboarding. I recommend everybody here to go to their Airbnb and Vrbo listings and Google the names of the property. Because if your direct booking website and properties are not appearing right at the top of Google in those first few links, that's definitely something to work on. I see people that the names don't match, the pictures don't match. It's just really important that you have that tight connection between the OTA listings and your own listings.
Yep, absolutely.
Now let's talk about, I mean, obviously you are, especially for your size, I'd say we work with operators from all the way 1 to 500 plus. Typically, I feel like you're performing at the level of, when we talk to somebody in the Outer Banks for 10 years that has 300 properties, they're often at your level of direct bookings. I think you've achieved something amazing given your size. And not having like the Google search budget, because they're spending, 10, 20, 50 grand a month on Google search ads. Kind of like, I think you're doing amazing, but kind of like, how do you view even improving this for this next coming 2025?
Yeah. So the main thing is think about this is not overnight. Okay. Remember, I started a long time ago, almost 2 decades ago, and it's building that authority, that domain authority, the keywords, the SEO, the trust of travelers as well, and the community. So, it starts immediately, you must start immediately, but don't expect overnight success either. One of the biggest things I've found that's been very helpful with direct bookings, especially this past year with the tremendous increase of new properties in our area, is the Google ads. We've definitely raised our budget, but it is nowhere near what that 300 property is. I'm only sitting at $2,000 a month for Google ads. And I've yet to dive back into social media ads. It's on my to-do list last month, actually, and I need to get back to that. But that said, I have had the Facebook pixel for over a decade on my website, on my StayFi, on everything, so that when I do get to the ads, the data is sitting there waiting for me. Uh, the it's been very intentional, even more so in the last 2 years with the direct booking, because of the increase in competition. And so the billboarding plays a big deal. The email marketing I've ramped up on, and then of course the Google ads, and focusing on keywords that are specific to my target guest. The other thing is keeping in mind what the booking window is and how people's search patterns are. As we said before, when they're planning out, they've got more time to look, and they'll look around a little more. They'll find us direct, definitely, because you can see with 2025, we're 86% direct in Branson alone. Uh, but the smaller the booking window, the less time they have to really search. And we find that they generally go to their favorite OTA, search there, find it, and book it as quickly as possible when there's on a very short time period.
And then I see here we have like Marriott Homes and Villas listed, Google Vacation Rentals. I'm kind of curious, have you found some of those other channels? I guess in the general, when we talk to people overall, they find that demand is keeps shifting towards Airbnb. Have you found any slowdown in kind of like what these channels are able to do for you? And do you worry that you might have to rely more on Airbnb just because other channels aren't delivering for you, or do you think your area is pretty resilient with those other options?
I think my area is pretty resilient as far as like Missouri House goes,
Hmm.
even though Airbnb is growing there. But what I find is those are a lot of first time travelers as well. So once they start traveling a little bit more, then they know to search more. In Branson, it's not Marriott, it's actually Villas of Distinction.
Oh, something different. Sorry.
Yeah, it's something different.
Okay.
That's okay, but similar, because you can book my place with Marriott Rewards through
Hmm.
Villas of Distinction. And I've actually got an exclusivity contract with them. So if you want to book a Branson place through Villas of Distinction, and their travel agents, you're only going to be presented with my properties. You won't get other choices. And you can use your airline rewards, you can use your hotel rewards, all those different things to book, which is really great. So we've got a really good setup there. And then Airbnb, like I said, we try to keep it under 10%. And then Verbo's been a steady, 25, 26% the past couple years as well. And Verbo is definitely for the Branson area, gets more travelers for those bigger groups. But like you said, things shift, and keeping in mind how people are searching for you, and then being on your toes and adjusting, tweaking things as needed is going to be really important to make sure that you're making the money you need to make on the OTAs. I don't see me cutting them out because they're definitely part of my marketing strategy, my marketing plan. I use the OTAs as a tool, the same way as I use StayFi, Price Labs, OwnerRez, Touch Stay as tools. That's the way I look at it. It's not my strategy. OTAs are not my strategy. They're simply a tool as part of my strategy.
I love that. Now we have some great questions for you, so I'll start going through some of these. Someone asked about cancellation policies. Kind of what's your approach to cancellation policies 2 years in advance? And does it differ between the channels?
That is an excellent question, and one that we have been tweaking and playing with. My husband, Nat, he calls himself a professional consumer. So we've been playing with that line of what is consumer friendly and what is that our business needs. And so last year, 2 years ago, we actually changed our deposit from half down for Branson to just a little bit, $299 for the smaller houses, so 4 to 6 bedrooms, and then $699 for the larger houses. And then the balance is not due until 30 days before arrival. They can also cancel 100% free cancellation until that point of balance due. But in the other part we put in there is we actually allow them to pay their balance ahead of time by check, Zelle, Venmo, however they want to do it. other than credit card. And then we do have a convenience fee that will deduct so that when they say, hey, do you have any discounts available? It says, yep, we have a discount if you decide to pay the balance by another method. So then that gets the money into our accounts, our trust account. We can earn some interest on that as well. And then we also allow these large families to pay individually to us. It doesn't have to be the booker when they're paying us by the cash methods. And the bookers and their families just absolutely love that, because then that takes the burden of one person having to collect money and then get it over to us. Each family can be responsible to get it over to us. And we've been able to manage that. And it's won us bookings because we do allow that as well. So we used to be 45-day cancellation policy. It used to be half down. You had to pay balance by 45 days before arrival. Within 45 days, there's no refund. So now it is a minimal deposit down, free cancellation up to the 30 days. After that, there's no refund. We also very much encourage travel insurance as well. And then over on Missouri House brand, it is still 45 or still half down. And then 30 days before arrival, balance paid, and no refund within 30 days. If they cancel before that 30 days, there is a cancellation fee depending upon which house they booked. And that's to help cover those credit card costs as well. And again, it's knowing what our target guest is, what the market will bear, how do we be more competitive in the market that we're in as well. And then the other thing, there was one other point on that, which totally slipped my mind.
That's fine. I know we're over time, so I
Oh,
just
yeah.
can do one or two more questions and then we'll
Okay.
just wrap up
Okay.
today. And to be free to be totally honest with this one is
Yeah.
have Airbnb guests or guests in general ever complained about having to log into the Wi-Fi, and how have you handled it? And has that changed over time?
Excellent question. We've had 0 people ever complain about logging into the Wi-Fi that way. Like the only problem we've ever had, and Arthur, we've talked to you about this a lot, and I think you've solved it now, is that when guests change the settings on the TV that's connected to the network and gaming systems too. So we've had some issues with that, the TVs being on the wrong network. So then when people want to play, but as far as logging in, 0 complaints, 0 issues at all.
Yeah, we did fix that one. So now TVs, basically anything that can't handle a splash page is white labeled to join the guest network so it can get on the Wi-Fi. And we actually put in more security so things that have cameras and microphones cannot join. So no one can place a sketchy camera in your listing, which I think is rare, but if it does happen, it can be very challenging, let's say, with your listing getting delisted. The last one, we got a lot of questions about your rewards program. I would just generally say go to Branson Family Retreats and go to your website, and you can go look through how I would say go to Tyann's website, take a look at what she does. Everything here is amazing. And you can go look at BFR rewards, find all the details, see if that's something that you want to implement in your own business. And with that, I think that we're good. I see people have some very specific SafeFi questions. If you want to jump, Tyann, I'm happy to answer these, or you can stay on a little longer. But we'll just kind of cut the recording here because I want to make sure I answer these folks' questions.
So before you turn the recording off,
Mhm.
if anybody wants to find me, I'm at Tyann Marcink on socials, and then Branson Family Retreats at Branson Family Retreats at Missouri House. And then if you want to see my tech stack and everything, it's tyannmarcink.com/tools.
Yeah, so you can show her that. I think this is a great website as well. This, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Slash
so
tools.
that's yeah, you can find all of your information here. Yeah, just a few StayFi questions I see here. One is, can you use StayFi with Starlink? The answer is yes, but you have to buy a special adapter from Starlink. They don't have an Ethernet port on their Starlink router, so they sell an adapter for Ethernet ports. Another question I saw here was, when I connect StayFi to OwnerRes with we basically pull in all your OwnerRes contacts into our email marketing tool, even for properties that don't have a StayFi device. This one says, no, even for those that don't have contact info. So just to be clear there, we want to give you every email in your universe that you can market to. We go through all your owner reservations, but we only pull in details for reservations that have a real email address associated. So we're only adding real emails to your email marketing lists from OwnerRes. OwnerRes does have a feature that's different from most PMS, which I highly recommend that you use, which is they have a way for asking an Airbnb guest to provide their email through a form. And we actually find OwnerRes users have more first-party emails than other PMS users because they've been collecting more emails from Airbnb bookers if they've been using that feature. Someone asked about Hospitable and OwnerRes. I would recommend going the Tyann approach and actually setting up Hospitable and setting up OwnerRes and deciding which one you like more, because they're pretty different. But some people, people love both, right? But they're probably one might work for you better, just depending on what you need. Someone asked about recording this webinar. Yes, that will be available. And finally, someone asked, what is a PMS? That is a property management software. That would be things like OwnerRes, Hospitable, Lodgify, etc. That is definitely the Hostfully Hostaway. You can see them all on our website. We have a ton of integrations. That's definitely the first software I recommend if you are looking to kind of up your vacation rental business. That's definitely the first software to purchase out there, as it will help you list on multiple channels and make sure your calendar doesn't have any double bookings on it. And with that, that was all the questions here. Tyann, thank you again so much and for going over time with us, because it was such great information. Yeah, and we'll be sharing this recording shortly. Thank you,
Thanks so much,
Tyann.
guys.
Thanks.